coastal currents. And so when we have those situations, it's really, it would be ideal if Oceanside had natural topography, reefs, coves, beach, pocket beaches, things like Laguna Beach has some topography, but because we have none, we lose sand more readily, especially in those high wave energy conditions. So that 2021 feasibility study really built kind of the guidelines that we've been following since then. And then in 2023, we began what's currently being called the Re-Beach Oceanside Project, which is the Sand Nourishment and Retention Pilot Project. Okay. So to get started on that task of finding a sand retention system, we didn't want to do something that's more traditional and could be more impactful. We wanted to do something more innovative. And so what we did was an international design competition. We did that for about 9 months, beginning in 2023. And we've arrived at our current design through that design competition. Because we did all that kind of international, world ask, a big, request for proposals from the world. We got a lot of interest, and so we've been doing a whole lot of outreach ever since then. That really set the bar for the amount of outreach that is being expected of a project of this magnitude. And so you can see on this timeline, we've been out there really talking with a lot of community groups, but also regionally and at the state level. So this is the current design. This is the design that was yielded from that international design competition. It includes all of these elements. So there is a bidirectional artificial reef, which is that game controller shape in the center. There are 2 headlands that extend off of the strand, and the reef is situated between those 2 headlands. There is onshore and nearshore beach nourishment, meaning sand will be placed around the reef on the sandbar, and then it will also be placed on the beach itself. And the amount of material, we're still refining that amount, but it's around 900,000 cubic yards of sand. If you're familiar with the scoop project that we just did at Tyson Street, that was 2,000 cubic yards of sand. So this is 900,000 cubic yards of sand. It's a whole lot more sand. And then we have a local borrow site. So the borrow site is just offshore of where the project area is, specifically where the reef is. We were really strategic on doing samples to find that local borrow site and to hopefully strike it rich with really good beach quality sand. And we were really lucky to have it where it is. And borrow sites offshore are usually pretty far away and or they don't have good quality sand. So we're pleasantly surprised that we found a local borrow site, which is really very close to the project site itself, and that will help during the implementation of this project and during the construction. So modeling has been a really important part of all of this project design. And that's because modeling helps us simulate sediment transport, it helps us simulate waves breaking around a reef. And so we've been really focused on doing an approach that works. So beginning with empirical analysis, really kind of those are like just equations, and really how do waves form, how does sediment move around, how do currents form. So really we've been doing that empirical analysis, which really happened early on, almost like 2021. Over the last 8 months, we've been doing more hydrodynamic modeling, which means putting the reef into numerical models and then seeing how the waves break around the reef. And so specifically looking at the reef itself. The next phase is morphological modeling, which is more over a longer time scale. So over 5 years, we're going to be looking at how the reef and the headlands and the sand all work in consultation with one another over a longer time scale and over a wider geographic area. So that morphological model phase will actually take a look at how the reef, headlands, and sand will affect from Oceanside Harbor Beach all the way down to Tamarack Jetties. And then what we just are in the middle of right now, and the project team is actually at this location on site today, is physical modeling. And so a lot of the update today will be more about that physical modeling phase, where we have scaled the reef and the headlands in a large wave basin that's about as big as this room, and then put it through all these tests with waves breaking around the reef so we can see how they're breaking, see how the currents are forming, and see where the sediment is depositing out on the shoreline. These are the 4 basic reef shapes that we were looking at through that hydrodynamic modeling phase. They are all bidirectional, which means that we assume and we understand that waves come from all directions in Oceanside. We're not a place where we just get northwest swells like Santa Barbara. We get waves from all directions, and so we wanted to make sure that the reef reflected the wave conditions on our coast. We put these 4 different reef shapes through 2 different water levels and 5 wave conditions, and that led to over 900 simulations. And what that gave us are these key performance indicators and basically how much wave energy dissipation each one of these reef shapes can provide. And then we were able to use those key performance indicators to compare it against one simulation over another, leading to a final parent design. So this is the artificial reef, the artificial reef that we're moving forward with now. This is the parent design that's going to be now utilized in that physical modeling phase and in that morphological phase. And so, again, this is like dozens of reef designs and hundreds of simulations that have resulted in this parent design. But this design is still to be modified a little bit more. We're still going to be refining various dimensions of the design, like the reef, the crest height between the 2 arms, or maybe the length of the arms, the materials that we're going to be using. These are all things that are still to be refined, but basically it will look like this. So this is the artificial reef in the wave basin. This is taken from last week. So the city manager and I and the mayor all went up to take a look at the reef and see how the waves were breaking around it and see how the team was doing with testing all this out. So our project team that is doing all this design work is staying up there. They're up there for about 2 months. They've built all of this bathymetry based on actual survey data of our coastline. So we ran bathymetric surveys and then constructed the bathymetry, the seafloor of Oceanside's coast. That is that brown part, that's all built. So that's all reflecting actual survey data and the actual coastline. The reef is made of different types of rock and it's scaled. So this is a 1 to 35 scale. So that means that 1 unit at the basin represents 35 units in the real world. And then, so, you know, a rock that might be this size would be 35 times that in real life. The same goes for the wave height. So what you're seeing in this video, okay, so what you're seeing in this video are 5-foot waves, but you know, they're only about 4 inches. But that's how the scale works. It's really difficult to scale timing though, and so these waves are breaking much faster, about 6 times faster than they would in the real world. Let's see. Oh, and then I should also mention, I'll do it one more time, that this is a high water level condition. So this is like a mean high water. So that's about 5.5 foot high tide. And throughout the artificial reef testing, we're going to be, lowering the tide and taking all these measurements to kind of verify all of our numerical modeling to date. This is just another angle. This video wasn't playing earlier. Oh, good. So this is another angle just on the side. So again, this is the offshore and moving towards shore, and so you can see the waves breaking on the reef on both sides going around the reef. And so there's 3 important tests that we're doing here at the physical modeling location at Oregon State University. We're testing the bridge crest height. That's a really important experiment that we're doing up there right now. And that's an important aspect because it's the highest point and it's also the primary wave dissipation element. So that crest is in between the 2 arms, and that height is something we're going to test at 3 different levels to see how much wave energy dissipation we can get with each one of those levels. Right now, at this level, when you're seeing it here, this is at 5-foot elevation, so 5 feet above the water level at 0 tide. The other thing that is important that we're going to be testing up in Oregon is the material. So we want to see, if we can have a design with smaller materials. So the bigger the materials, like if we're really expecting to get a piece of quarry rock that weighs 6 tons, it's going to be pretty expensive for us. So we want to try and see what materials we can get away with if we can have smaller materials that will still, of course, be stable and be meeting our project objectives, but also be economical and not overly engineered. So that's the other test that we're doing up there. And again, we want to make sure that the layer configurations all work. We don't want to compromise the design, and so we want to test this out in this kind of real-world simulation before actually doing it. And then finally, this is upside down on purpose. So down here are the headlands. That's the reef. Of course, the reef shape has kind of changed a little bit, but this is just to show a mock-up of what we'd like to see. Finally, the thing that we're doing up in Oregon is testing out the sediment transport. We want to really see that the currents that are forming around the wave are encouraging sediment deposition on the shoreline and not causing more rip currents. We want to see the currents come and hit the shoreline and move laterally, which will allow the sand to hit the headlands and then deposit out on the beach. And so that's kind of these currents that you're seeing here where the arrows are really small. That's a lot less wave energy and not allow the sediment to drop out of suspension and then to be deposited on the beach. So that's kind of the biggest update we have. There's a few more slides here, but I feel like maybe some folks have already seen, renditions of the headlands, and that maybe I should pause now for questions just in the interest of time, because I only have like 5 more minutes. Yes?
Jayme, at low tide, will we be able to see the rocks that you're putting in the ocean?
Yes, so currently we have the crest height is at 5 feet. And so you will be able to see it unless it's a 6-foot high tide. That's the current configuration of the reef.
So most of the time we'll be able to see it?
Most of the time at the current level, like I said, the bridge crest height is the one thing that we're really probably likely to change, and could change even through the permitting process. But really, we see that as the biggest element of wave energy dissipation, and we do want to be really cognizant of if we dim it down too much, if we bring it down to a level that's beneath the ocean surface all the time, and it's not something that you can see visually, it could really compromise the performance of the reef. And so we really don't want to see that. So we are testing those different levels out to make sure we're clear on how high that bridge crest is. Regardless, we are gonna have to put buoys out that indicate where the reef is, and that's a safety thing and a Coast Guard thing. And so there will be some visual changes regardless. But yeah, currently you can see it.
I'm just thinking about the little kids that are gonna go out there and dive off of it.
Yep, there's definitely gonna be people who are interested in taking a closer look. Yes.
So you said that there's 3 different tests that you're gonna do, so 5 foot's the highest, what's like the other 2 increments?
The other one is 7, 8 feet.
I thought they were gonna be lower ones.
Oh, and 0. And not below, it won't be
Okay,
below
so
0.
5, like the middle one, then
Mhm.
7.
Exactly.
You're gonna test one higher.
Exactly, yeah, good question.
The sand from the borough site, you called it high-quality sand. Given what you said earlier, does that mean it's heavier
Heavier.
and cleaner?
Heavier, there's always gonna be some cobble.
Okay. Is there any other quality to high-quality sand that makes it high quality?
There is great sand off of Mission Bay.
Okay.
So that is our backup plan. If we don't have good, high-quality sand coming from our local borough site, we really do need to actually get down and see it further. But if we see that it's not the greatest quality sand and we want better sand, then we are gonna, in our permitting process, in our CEQA and environmental review process, we are gonna have other borough areas available to us.
Are there any other attributes to the sand that make it high quality, other than weight and cleanliness?
It's really just weight. Yeah, we would love to be selective and not have a color change, but our sand in Oceanside is really gray, so it's gonna be hard to match that color. Yeah, Karen?
Back to your modeling, can you show where the surfable wave would be when you were running the water over that reef? Where is the surfable wave at?
So surfing resources are, of course, utmost importance. We don't want to cause more harm. What we want to do is improve sandbar conditions and improve opportunities for surf. The major objective here is sand retention and restoring our beaches. So surfing is not the major objective. There's a lot of new surf reefs that are being designed and implemented in Australia. We're not doing a surf reef per se, but we are looking at how the waves are breaking. And so when you look at this, the waves are breaking around the edges on the arms of the reef. And maybe that previous slide will show it better. But you can see the wave. It's hard to show you. I don't think I can show you here with my cursor, but. So the waves are coming and wrapping around and breaking on the edges of the reef. So it wouldn't be at the top or the 2 pinnacles necessarily, because that'll be pretty deep out there. It'll be like 20-foot depth. But on a bigger swell, of course it will. But on a normal, more like 3 to 4 foot day, the waves will be breaking around the edges of the reef. So you can kind of see it. Yeah, you can't see my cursor, but on those 2 arms.
So Jayme, on that figure right there, it's just using the figure that looks like a bone. So which way is that?
Jayme, there's a stick behind that,
Oh.
right there. If you look right behind the screen there,
Oh,
it
okay.
may be, use that as
So which way is the beach?
So here are the headlands.
a,
That's the headland right
The
there.
buildings, okay.
Sorry if I didn't point that out earlier. The waves are coming from this direction, and this is basically just due west. So we're looking at basically a west swell. And we are running different simulations between a south swell, a northwest swell. So this would be Wisconsin, and that's Tyson. And so here, it's a wave breaking in that direction, mostly going left and around the reef. And same thing over here, it's breaking on this side, moving around it. The wave crest, the reef crest is really high. We don't expect there to be surfable conditions on the inside here, but on the edges we do. Yeah.
You said something about, you can model some waves for
So currently, we're working towards being shovel-ready within a year. We're working on our EIR and our EIS, we're working on our permitting right now, and we're working towards getting funds. So, we don't have construction funds yet, but we are applying for grants. We've applied for a grant with the Division of Boating and Waterways. This is our 3rd year trying for that grant. We're working towards grants with the State Coastal Conservancy. There is some funding out there for these, especially for these types of innovative efforts, but we haven't secured that yet.
Since the borrow site is semi-closed, would it be able to park the dredge barge out there and pump directly, or will it have to be put into a thing and then deposited?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there's 2 different types of dredges that we really use here. When you've done the regional beach sand projects, those are hopper dredges,
Right.
and so those dredges bring sand from far away and bring it in a barge. But we're hoping to use a cutter dredge for this local borrow site, because that is a dredge that you can use where you can place it in one location and then pipe it from there directly to the beach. And so that's how we would do it. So instead of having trucks bringing all that material, we'd have a pipe.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So it will affect the surfing conditions?
So in the location of where the project area is, it's currently very deep and very unused. There is surf, and it will change things, yes. But it is the sandbars are very deep and very unused, and we have surfline cameras that are using this new technology called Surfline Coastal Intelligence. And what that's doing is it's tracking all of the waves, the wave quality, and the use. And so you don't have to hear me say it. You can look at the data that we're getting from all of our cameras. Yeah.
I just want to say thank you for your hard work on this,
Thanks.
and you're explaining something very technical in a clear way that I can understand, and appreciate all the thought that's behind the project.
Thanks. Okay. Good. I'm glad. It's hard. It is technical. There's a lot of things going on, but I appreciate that.
Pretty
Thank you.
amazing.
I'm sorry, but I do have to go. Got 2 little kiddos that are in different places tonight. I gotta get one of them.
Well, let's give her a
Okay.
round of applause.
I'll come back. Come back for more updates.
Thank you, Jayme.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jayme, appreciate it. I look forward to any updates that you can give us down the road.
Yes.
And now we're gonna go right into MJ Hernandez, and she's gonna update us on what's happening with Coast Highway, and hopefully, timelines for us. So without further ado, this is MJ.
Let me do my help here. Hi, everyone. Okay, hi, it's been about a year since I was last here. Last time I was a consultant, now I'm here as a city employee. The last time we came to talk about the Coast Highway project, Victor and I came requesting OCNA's support for our grant application to Sandag. And today I can confirm that the city's been awarded the grant from Sandag. Yeah, the city actually received the highest grant application in the county. We had a bit of an interesting process. We were told that we got the grant earlier in the summer, and then Sandag actually did a complete reevaluation. So that's part of our delays. We were notified of the award about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So now it's been confirmed, we're working with Sandag on our grant documents. Just to give you a little background on the project itself and our goals, the Coast Highway project is looking to provide complete streets along Coast Highway from Neptune to Oceanside Boulevard. By a complete street, we mean an area that invites all users, pedestrians, bikers, obviously vehicular traffic, will be in many ways changing the configuration of Coast Highway today. And so now that the city has secured grant funding from Sandag, we're going to move towards our first phase of construction. Our first phase will start at Neptune, and we're going to take it to Topeka Street. Very small.
So where does A,
So Neptune's right here,
Neptune?
yeah, and then we're gonna end it right.
Okay, and this is, what is it?
Topeka.
Topeka.
Topeka, so just what, one block south of Mission?
Right.
Yeah.
So that'll be phase one. We were able to secure $3.5 million from Sandag. The city did a match. Our cost for phase one is approximately $7.5 million. We had to make the decision to phase out the project to allow us to build it. We still need to secure funding for phase 2 and 3, but we're hoping that showcasing phase 1 will help us position the project for additional grant funding. Currently, I'm working with our design consultant on finalizing our construction documents, getting everything sort of buttoned up, finalizing our environmental, our project addendum. And at the same time, the city is taking on a project, our traffic department, I call it TILA, is taking on a project to evaluate the traffic impacts on the lateral streets. Yeah, that's an exciting one.
And what does that mean? That means Freeman and Tremont primarily.
Yeah, but we're also looking at on the other side, right? So we'll be looking at Cleveland and the streets on the other side of Coast Highway. And I believe, I don't have all the details on their project, but I think their boundary, it's a little closer to the 5. So we're really trying to look at what could happen to those side streets. But again, that's Tila's project. Last time Kimberly Corbin was here and she updated everyone and let everyone know that the project would be going into construction in December. Because we're waiting to see all of the results of the impacts of the lateral streets, right now our construction date, more realistic construction date is early 2027. So as soon as we know kind of the impacts that the neighborhood will have, engineering will be ready to then take on construction. We don't have a contractor on board yet. That will happen later this year. I'll take your question.
This is probably obvious to everybody else, but I assume those crosshatches are crosswalks for pedestrians?
Yes, so
And so
I can
are
give
they
a little-
controlled by those little buttons that flash lights and no one pays attention to, and you almost get hit on Pacific and Tyson whenever you try to go down to that staircase?
We're doing red flashing beacons, so they're much bigger. It's a pretty bright light. It's a proven way of sort of controlling safety, we obviously.
So could you try it out on Pacific and Tyson and see if anybody pays attention to those?
Would be happy to.
No, serious, no,
They also have to
9 out
slow
of 10
down.
times, there's,
It'll be
you know,
going slower too.
It's a
Yeah, so
roundabout.
part of what the project will do, it will naturally slow down the flow. It's not going to create a ton of queuing, right? The traffic is not gonna go away, but it will naturally slow down the speeds. And we're also bringing in fold outs that these sort of expansions from our sidewalk.
Yeah.
All of these improvements together ideally will create or naturally force vehicles to slow down.
for pedestrians.
No, absolutely, and for bikers as well.
Yeah.
We can't control how people drive, but,
Where are the roundabouts on Coast Highway?
sorry?
Where are gonna be the roundabouts?
Our first roundabout is going to be at Civic Center. That's the one that we'll be building as part of phase 1. From there, our next roundabout is going to be at Michigan. Michigan, Wisconsin, Washington, and West.
So close together?
Yeah,
Well, Michigan, Washington, Wisconsin, and West.
Right.
yeah,
That goes out.
yeah.
That's 2 blocks.
No, it's more, it skips a few intersections that are close together, but again, our objective is creating a complete street that invites pedestrians and sort of naturally creates more inviting environment, for people who are walking. So that's been the proposal. I believe a previous iteration of the project actually had more roundabouts, so this is sort of our reduced version.
So this is a statement and a question. Actually, we have been to Carmel, Indiana, that has more roundabouts than anywhere in the US. And it greatly reduces accidents, T-bones, which are critical in hurting people, and many fatal accidents. It really slows down the speed of traffic, but actually increases the flow of traffic through the town. So I think these are great. At one point, I had heard there was an idea to kind of create a hybrid with stoplights and the roundabouts. Is that still being considered? Because a pure roundabout, especially if you've been in Europe and other locations where they really work, is the best way to go. Is there still a thought about including stoplights in some way in the roundabouts?
For this project, our roundabouts are not going to have a stoplight.
Okay.
We will other intersections, so we are proposing one on Civic Center. 2 blocks north of that on Surf Friday, we have an intersection. So all of our traffic signals will talk to each other and sort of consider the flow of traffic changing with the roundabout, but the roundabout itself is not going to have a traffic signal.
Thank you.
And on the roads without roundabouts, there will be a physical barrier, so there's no cross traffic,
Correct, so our median is going to kind of go along Coast Highway. Some streets where we're used to making turns from both directions will be right turn only.
That's why you need the roundabout every 2 blocks.
Yeah, question,
Thank you.
so I'm saying this as a local citizen, not a city employee. I've been a contractor for over 38 years, and I know how contractors work, and I know how capital improvement jobs work, and I've actually had a close friend that oversaw capital improvement projects for Caltrans. And is there a way people can review the contracts you sign with people that have stipulations for not going overruns, asking for, what do you call it?
Incentives for
Contract
completion
changes,
time.
because I've seen the city get taken advantage of several times. And if they had staff that was better at contract law, writing contracts for this, that wouldn't happen. And if you took some lessons from Caltrans, you'd probably not get taken advantage of, because I see this budget's gonna get chewed up by the right kind of contractor doing the wrong thing, and they don't have someone that's skilled at dealing with it.
Yeah, well, I mean, as far as the input during the contract negotiation process, I'm not sure that that's part of, that the public can be involved in
But
that.
is there a way to try to make it a suggestion that allow the public, because I think that needs some help sometimes, because when they did the bathrooms, they got reamed on overruns that shouldn't have happened.
Yeah,
And I can name some other ones, but I don't wanna kill my own career with it.
yeah, I mean, avenues like this certainly help. Part of what we are doing now from engineering as we're completing our projects is constructability reviews and trying to ensure that our quantities match, that it aligns with our bid requests, that we're able to catch problems, that we're also considering our plans from a real world perspective. Our CIP staff are also, I mean, me personally, we kind of work together with the contractor and ensure that we can protect the city resources.
I just know there's a way you can do the stipulations in the contract for penalties for.
Non-completion.
We do provide,
And then you can incentives for doing it fast.
yeah, our contract documents include liquidated damages, and those are also tied to our project schedule. Contractors owe the city money if they go beyond the approved schedule. And generally for projects like this, we make our liquidated damages high, because no contractor really wants to be out. At least for the projects that I've managed, they've all been completed on time, and we've been able to negotiate change orders that are sensible. But no, we obviously welcome the feedback from the public on how we're addressing the contract.
I'm just hoping to see the budget not get wasted on just the first run here.
Yeah, no, of course. Oh, sorry, she was first.
Do the roundabouts fit within the current footprint of the intersection?
Yes, our intersection will change a little bit, but the intersection itself, I mean, as you can see, it's sort of our existing, what we're changing is our lane configuration. And then at some areas, we are adding those holdouts. And then we are reducing the travel lanes from 2 to 1. So those will be the major changes. The intersection itself will remain sort of the size it is now. Jane, sorry.
Yeah, so a question about, the, lateral lanes, or the lateral traffic damage. What is the plan with regard to when construction actually occurs, providing alternate means of getting from north to south or whatever?
That's kind of what we're hoping to see with the study that traffic is taken on, is how we'll be able to address that before we go into construction. So that we're able to provide the public with a solid plan on how we'll mitigate, traffic control and traffic flow.
Okay.
Yeah, because we looked at, from Michigan, or say Missouri, 1 block south of Michigan to Oceanside Boulevard, there's 1 stop sign at Wisconsin on Tremont Street. So any traffic app is gonna have you bypass the 4 roundabouts if you wanna go north or south from, say, this new transit center development. They're gonna ask you to, they'll probably say, because of what's going on Coast Highway, to go on Cleveland or go on South Tremont Street. So we are hoping to get ahead of this, especially, you know, maybe even before construction in the 2nd phase, because traffic is gonna be diverted to Freeman and or Tremont for north and south. And if we could get ahead of it, so people are used to maybe some traffic calming measures on those streets, to encourage people to stay on Coast Highway.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if there's anything, because I don't think the downtown traffic study that they're working on extends down to Wisconsin or farther.
No, it's separate. And so that's what we're looking at, is what measures should we implement? What will make the most sense? What can we have in place? Again, I'm not sure exactly what proposal the team that Tila is working with is gonna give us, but we'd like to have some sense of what our traffic is going to do before we go out with the, and get into construction.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any locations, especially with the roundabouts, where there'll be private property acquisition?
We're not planning to acquire any property as part of this project. What we will need is some, construction access, just to tie up street, sidewalks, but we won't require, right-of-way acquisitions.
Yeah, guy with a hat.
With that, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. So in between the roundabouts, because so 2 lanes now on each side, going on in 1 lane. Is it 1 lane the entire time between them?
Yes, there will be 1 lane.
Okay, and I can't tell just because my eyes are bad, but that extra space between there's more room for biking and pedestrian, or what's the?
Sort of like here, in between the.
What's gonna take up the lane? that's
Yeah, what's gonna take up all
disappearing?
that space basically in between?
So where most of the space will be taken will be at the locations where we're providing those fold-outs that will require us to kind of have a more narrow street.
Oh, so there's gonna be a physical separation between the street and the bike lane, or the?
No, the bike lane and the street will still the same. In between the improvements that you're talking about here, right? Like what happens?
Yeah, I don't know, let me just look closer and I'll see if I
Sorry.
can find my question. But I was just curious what they're doing with the extra space in between these here, with the sidewalk space.
Yeah.
Because obviously I understand by the roundabout, I see what's going on here, but in between the roundabouts, so this, let's say this whole section,
Yeah.
what's going on with that extra?
That will largely remain as is now. So our improvements are really looking mostly at intersections. In some areas, we will need to bring in new sidewalk and we'll be bringing in the median. But we're not planning on providing a separated bikeway in the spaces between sort of.
So are these just really wide 1-lane roads?
Yeah.
Okay, so no side parking, will.
Some areas will still allow for side parking, so that it's not going to be impacted all along the corridor.
Yeah.
The corridor, sort of the parking impacts along the corridor will be at the locations that have the pop outs or the bulb outs. At the other locations, if parking is available now, our plan is to not remove that. But yeah, we're not necessarily bringing the sidewalk to create like a 10-foot parkway or something like that.
Go ahead, Deidre.
I guess the question is, if you're not putting, is there any kind of accommodation for pedestrian crossing
Yes.
at those? Because you said there's no lights, so what, like, I've been on big traffic circles and cars just ignore you.
Oh, no, I mean, we will have designated crosswalks before the roundabout itself.
But is there any,
And then red flashing
And red flashing
beacons,
lights.
on either side, as well as the thermoplastic painting.
okay.
Yeah.
So the bicycle traffic is just, it's gonna blend through road right?
Yeah, the share road will remain,
Better bike riders, hopefully.
yeah.
Is the pedestrian crossing before each roundabout?
Yes,
Every-
before the intersection, yeah. So you would kind of have to go with this. You wouldn't, we're not encouraging people to do sort of an X or anything like that. You would have to do a whole bigger circle.
Or ideally learn to do the block before instead of crossing there.
Or that, you would then learn.
No, but if there's a barricade, is there a place to cross?
Yes, for example, we're providing a roundabout at Civic Center, the street before Sports or Fisher will be providing a crosswalk there with a red flashing beacon and the paint on the ground.
The bulb boat, is that taking up one full lane right at the corner?
Now, this is not the full lane.
Okay, so there's, bikes might still have a few feet.
Yes, yeah, but it will reduce the parking that was available at those intersections.
So, in the center roundabout, one of the things a lot of communities do is public art. Is that an opportunity for Main Street to work with the city on an art project in the middle of the roundabout?
So that's one of the items that's actually being discussed now, at the executive level. It will likely be more of a hardscape and trying to bring in some form of artistic element, and at the same time, not trying to block visibility by providing a sculpture, that sort of covers, or it's vertical. We're working on determining what a theme that we could provide throughout the corridor might be that is representative of Oceanside and that aligns with other efforts that the city is also taking on, around identity. But yeah, that one's TBD. There's a couple of ideas floating. Any other questions?
Timeline, okay, you say the beginning of 2027, not before?
Not until the side street study is complete, is what I would say. That's really guiding, our decision right now. We know this will impact the community, it will impact you, when we go into construction, and our team just wants to have a good sense of some potential mitigations and trying to predict a little bit of what could happen once we do go into construction.
Well, as you know, we've been fighting for trying to redirect bus traffic from North County Transit. And I know you're not familiar with it's TILA, we're gonna have to talk to TILA about it. But that's a critical thing because they're trying to use the same streets that you're gonna have bypass traffic on. And try to use the southbound turns where there's bump outs. You know, it's just, there's like, okay, and somebody needs to say, uncle, this isn't gonna work.
Yeah, we encourage you to invite TILA. Those conversations, we are aware that there's challenges there and the city's doing everything that they can to mitigate it, yeah.
Are there designs for, because I'm still having a hard time seeing in between the roundabouts, all that space that's gonna be for the one lane. So are there designs for that in between? Because on there, for example, it just kind of looks like a bigger road. Is it just going to be a bigger road, or is there going to be opportunity to take advantage of that increased space? For example, restaurant patios onto the, like onto the sidewalk, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I can't answer the second part of the question as far as like what other business opportunities there are. Well, we do have, construction documents, those are not on the website, but I can, give you my card if you wanna email, it's a pretty large plan set.
Okay.
Like I said, our improvements are not necessarily focused fully on the corridor, like in between intersections.
Yeah.
But absolutely, I think there could be some opportunity to reimagine how businesses are.
Because I imagine if the goal obviously is to slow things down, make things more walkable, it would be a good opportunity to develop that corridor, because there's a lot of good restaurants along there. But
Yeah.
develop it for more comfort, walkability, and just, general.
Okay, one more.
You know, I was a part of the study when we first started doing this back with Russ, and Torty Gallus was the consultant that came together with the Coast Highway Vision and Strategic Plan, and they talked about the concept of complete streets, not just about the road type, but what this gentleman is saying was like making a living room out of your street, so you could be comfortable being walkable and have spaces for, like pergolas or whatever, for restaurants and other businesses to thrive. So the concept of complete streets kind of includes what you were asking, that's kind of the concept, to make everything more inviting, like you were welcoming somebody into your house, however it's, on the street.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's also a certain level of comfort that a complete street should give to the users. I think it's sort of like a combination of the whole ecosystem, right? And how the improvements come together in a way that incentivizes business to invest and or expand. I think I'm getting way ahead of the engineering mandate here, but ideally we do want to incentivize and invite creative uses.
Well, I'm standing because I'm the time check. So let's thank
Thank you.
MJ. We appreciate the information, and certainly we hope that we can invite you back for updates. Yeah. And also, just to add on some of the artistic stuff that we're talking about, the cultural district, CJ, is looking at that along with Main Street and trying to figure out what, where, how, why. So.
Yeah, and we're collaborating to think of ways in which we can incentivize businesses during construction as well.
Yeah.
So.
But I think the idea of at least let's get some of these intersections, which by the way, helps with speeding and stuff, right? So if you have that in your mind that, gee, this would be nice, this is one way that we can do that, which will, I think, help the majority of us downtown. Because even if you're not Freeman or Tremont, you're up the hill, you hear it just as easily. So I think this is a welcome relief from some of that.
And I'll leave some cars up at the front if you guys.
Yeah, great, thank you. So just a reminder for next month, we will be on the fourth Tuesday. What is that? Anyway, and we're planning on having the mayor and maybe Councilman Joyce come and speak with us. So tell your friends and neighbors to come on down.
24th.
The 24th, yes, the 24th of March. And so please come and bring some friends, and let's make sure that they receive not only a nice welcome, but lots of good questions.
Yes.
Okay? Want to say good night to everyone? Thank you for coming. And we'll see you next month.
Please help pick up the chairs. Thank you.
Please help pick up the chairs.